1922. 1922 is the new Netflix adaptation of a Stephen King novella, and it tells the tale of this farmer, played by Thomas Jane, who is becoming less satisfied with his wife and with his son, plots to kill her. So, Nate, this is the fourth feature-length adaptation of a Stephen King novel. We had Dark Tower, Gerald's Game, It. Yeah. So, what do you think about this one? I mean, this is a different kind of Stephen King story.
It totally is. That's sort of what I like about this story. I mean, I think that we've had a lot of different adaptations recently. I think Gerald's Game goes more into thriller. I think It goes more into horror. Of course, Dark Tower is its own thing. But this is really, it's a lot of things wrapped into this movie. But mostly, I think it's a character study of guilt, and with a few pretty shocking moments and some pretty effective scares.
Yeah, I liken this to The Telltale Heart.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of somebody living with the guilt of murdering someone, and just the kind of a downward spiral that this one decision, puts this man's life into.
Yeah, exactly. I think the same thing. It really is just how the ripple effect can be caused from such a horrible decision, and who is affected by it, like, in the long term. Even people that aren't even really related to these people are affected by this horrible, horrible thing that they do. But what did you think of the pacing of this movie? I mean, it's like a fast-paced, slow movie is almost the way I would look at it, kind of.
I would call it just a slow-paced movie.
You think it was slow?
Completely honest, yes.
Yeah?
There were times where I found this movie to be a little bit sleepy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I didn't know what I was walking into. I never read 1922, and I had no real idea what this was about. So I was finding myself wondering where they were going to go from there. And I was expecting there to be some kind of justice at the end, I guess I would say. Yeah. Like, kind of, he kills his wife, and then, like, I was expecting it'd be like unraveling a mystery where someone's onto him, he has to cover his tracks type deal. But it really just shows, like, the degradation of his life because he committed this horrible act. Like, and it's very good cause and effect. One thing leads to another. But I will say the pacing, it was kind of sleepy at times for me personally.
I can see it coming across that way. For me, it was almost like as if it was losing pace, it picked right up. Something happened something happened that kept my attention. I felt like right when I started to maybe feel like it was getting a little bit slow, something happened that really invested my attention into it. But I also felt like this was a very atmospheric movie. I really felt the dread. I felt the tension. I thought it was really eerily directed. Almost, I had reminiscence of The Shining with a little bit of Pet Sematary as well, which are both Stephen King adaptations. But still, that type of pacing where I felt the dread. I felt the tension and the grief from these characters. And I think it probably attributes it to the performances.
Yeah, and let's get right into that. What did you think of Thomas Jane? I mean, 80% of this movie is him. How do you think he handled it?
This is the best role he's ever done. I think that he killed it. This was an amazing performance by Thomas Jane, to the point where even though it's clearly Thomas Jane, there was points where I just didn't really recognize him that much. He just really invested into this performance, and I felt like he carried this movie beautifully.
Yeah, I agree. I think he did a great job in this performance, and it is probably one of his best performances, if not his best performance. Yeah. But I will say, if I had one complaint about his performance, his accent was super thick.
Yeah.
To the point where I had to turn the subtitles. This was on Netflix. I had to turn the subtitles on a few parts just to understand what he was saying. Because even rewinding it back, I couldn't quite understand him.
Yeah.
And the thing that kind of threw me off is just that nobody around him had like that thick of an accent.
He was pretty grovelly.
Yeah, it just didn't fit. But I didn't let that distract me too much because he does give a great performance, and he starts off with making this decision, and he seems very logical. He doesn't seem to be doing it out of passion or emotion. It seems like this is the best way to go about it. There is no other way. Mm-hmm. And then once his life starts to spiral out of control, you really do see it wear on him, and he wears the performance well.
Yes, he definitely does. And I think the performances across the board are really solid here. Now, there's not much I didn't like about this movie. But one thing, for me, it's no secret that he murders his wife. That's just part of the plot. We're not really spoiling anything from that. It really is what carries this movie.
It's the premise of the movie.
It's the premise of the movie, but for me, I wasn't totally convinced that these two were wholeheartedly able to do this. I felt like they needed a little more incentive for the murder to actually take place. He is narrating this story, so there is points where he's just sort of verbally telling you how much he starts to dislike his wife. But I felt like the son, even though an impressionable 14-year-old son, I feel like he's just convinced a little too easily to go through with something like this. It almost seems like one of them would probably bail.
Yeah, there was like a slight moment of hesitation on the son's part.
Yeah.
When they were when they were committing the act. But other than that, yeah, it seemed like, just one conversation, and it's one of those things where there were alternative solutions to this problem.
Yeah.
But he just was like laser focused in on this one. And so, like, if they would have maybe contemplated some other ideas and he shot him down, like, maybe we can do this. No, we can't do that. We have to do this. Maybe we do this. No, we can't do that. We have to do this. Maybe if there was some more dialogue like that, then this decision would seem more logical and more believable.
Exactly. And I think that what I liked about this movie is that its title is 1922, and a lot of the circumstances that they are involved in is because of the time that it's set in. And I really like that. And I sort of tried to use that, I don't know if an excuse is the best way to say it, but sort of an excuse where this is a simpler time, and I think that, land was everything. That's
Right.
all you wanted. And he was not willing to give this up or willing to give up his lifestyle at all. So I get the reasoning. I just could have used a little bit more believability around it.
Right. And they do utilize the time, because with the way they cover this up, these guys are lucky there aren't forensic scientists and DNA studies, all that stuff going on at the time.
Yeah, they take precautions that people don't even check. They're like, didn't even check it.
Right.
So you're just like, man, they really are just like, you didn't do it? Okay, moving on. So.
But I think they did capture like that Dust Bowl era. 1922 is, Great Depression's not too far off. So it is believable, wanting to keep land as like your most valuable asset. The wife wanted to sell it so they can move away. They want to stay there and own the farm, and that kind of like kicks off the plot. But yes, I think that they utilize the period very well, and especially with like, they have the one car. When families only had one car and someone takes it, everyone's screwed.
Yeah, totally. And just like maintenance, basic maintenance of a home or things like that, or an infection, like all those things are life or death situations back in this time.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that, like I said, the pacing for me, it kept me invested, it kept me interested. I was never bored. It just was a little bit long. Even though it's not that long of a movie, I felt like it could have been probably an hour and a half, and I would have been satisfied. I felt like they sort of tried to drag it out just a little too much.
Yeah, I felt that too.
I did like the ending. I loved the last shot. I loved the ending of it. I thought that was great. Very Stephen King-ish, though.
Oh, for sure.
But I do think this movie, for me, after seeing Gerald's Game, after seeing It, which was so blatantly scary to me, this one still got under my skin a little bit more. There is some visual imagery in there that I think is truly terrifying, that might stick with you after you see it, but at the time be like, there wasn't that many jump scares, or that wasn't very startling. But I think there's some pretty eerie things in this film.
Yeah, I would say this movie's creepy, not exactly scary. There are creepy parts, there are scary images.
Yeah.
But there aren't any jump scares, there aren't any like big gotcha kind of moments.
No, it's just really an examination of how you can never outrun guilt. It's just always going to be there.
Buffs. Okay, Nate, we had some different thoughts on this one, but why don't you go ahead and put a score on 1922?
Yeah, I think we're in a great era of Stephen King adaptations. They just keep hitting home runs to me. I just have been enjoying every single one along the way, except for The Dark Tower. It was a little iffy, but this one was a winner. Yeah, this one, absolutely. I love this movie. I think it's right there available on Netflix and totally worth a watch. I would give it probably an 8 out of 10.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Me personally, I can't say I enjoyed it that much. The pacing really did work against this movie for me personally. I feel like if the Telltale Heart was a Snickers mini, the novella for 1922 is like a half Snickers, and this movie's a whole Snickers. It's like, I think it would have been cool with the mini, It's just, I don't think I needed as much.
It's just too much. Too much Snickers.
Yeah, I just think it was. Yeah, exactly. Too much Snickers, not enough time. But this isn't a bad movie. If you're a fan of Thomas Jane, watch this movie. This is like a powerhouse performance from him.
Totally.
And outside the pacing, there are a few small minor complaints, but I do find this to be an enjoyable movie. And you got an hour or two to burn, and you're watching Netflix. Go ahead, put this one on and watch it. I will give 1922 a 6 out of 10. Not a terrible movie. Can't call it a great movie, but it's definitely enjoyable and watchable.
I can call it a great movie.
I hope you do. You call it great, I call it good. Buffs.
Okay, so that's our review of 1922. Have you seen the movie? Are you planning on it? Leave all your comments below. Also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We always appreciate all the support at Cinema Buffs.
And be sure to join us next week as we review the new Marvel Cinematic Universe feature, Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of Thor, I'll be honest, but Taika Waititi directing this, I'm totally invested. I love what we do in the shadows, so I'm actually looking forward to this.
I'm looking forward to it as well, yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring you that review next week, but until then, don't you forget.
There's no place like the theater.